Finland and history of the process towards NATO. As most people are aware that Finland was not totally free, especially in regards to foreign policy during the Cold War period. It was, we had to always look the interest of Soviet Union, but even it's not a pleasant position to please this a nation that and it's not an easy position, because Soviets in reality they didn't respect weak characters and politicians who were pleasing them too much. They wanted to find Finnish patriots who were ready to see the world in a realistic way. So there were periods of like in the end of 40s when Finland Finnish people were afraid of Russians or Soviets putting a communist regime in power or trying to change our system, but they didn't. And part of the reason is that they knew that the real, the better and more lasting peace could be achieved by operating with the patriots. And actually, we had a president in the beginning of the Cold War, not the first one, but I mean, became Paasikivi, who had been the Finnish ambassador to Moscow in the 1930s, and he knew, and Stalin knew him, and that he had a more idea that this man understands the reality, you know, of, because Russian was a man who believed in the power of his tank units, and like he's famously, he's quoted as saying that how many battalions this Vatican has. So he didn't believe in this religious spheres, but he believed in the power of his war machine. So there is, so he found or remembered that Paasikivi was a man he could deal with. And actually it's recorded by this one famous Cold War historian, Louis Hall, who was present in Tehran in 1943, and in his book about the Cold War, he remembers how Stalin was talking about that he should find a Polish Paasikivi. So we are not aware of this type of thing so much in Finland, but it shows that Stalin had, in a way, already chosen Paasikivi as the leader of, or the person he wants to make peace in Finland with. So he was realistic, and after that Kekkonen was the successor who followed his line of thinking. So that's a background and the beginning of the Cold War. It's not he was a pro-Finnish, of course, Paasikivi, but he was somehow picked up by Stalin also. Finland uh, had to pay war reparations for the Soviets after the World War II. That was a hard reality. But Finnish politicians realized that it was a new way of defending our nation. Just if we paid these heavy payments put on us, it was a new way of defending our nation. So we didn't give any reason for the Soviets to put more pressure on us or even to occupy us. Soviets had taken many machines and factories from many parts of Europe. But if Finnish people worked hard, and we got some steel maybe from Sweden also to be able to pay these war payments. So they benefited. They needed all kinds of things, and Finland could manufacture them in a reasonably good quality already that time. So and also it was also seen as a way of industrializing Finland. And some people estimate that the Russians, they wanted to have big workplaces like shipyards and such, which could be turned into pro-communist areas, and Western nations, United States and the others, they were investing more on paper industry and some other areas. So there was not Finland could still there was a competition of the ideologies inside the Finland. It was not ideologically like, if you could use this Churchill's formula, it was not something like 90 to 10% or something like this. It was more like 50-50, which was supposed to be the case like Hungary or something, but the Russians, they changed the equation a bit, and even more after the uprising of 1956, which was also a reminder to Finland that our position was not guaranteed, and it was a big shock because it happened after the death of Stalin, and Khrushchev had already a bit eased the tensions and had given some their base in Finland, inside Finland, returned, and maybe with also some war prisoners were sent back to Germany, and there were some dealings, and suddenly the sense of the freedom was again stopped. So there were many periods in this Cold War, but this wasn't one episode. This that Finland paid all the things put on us, which is in today's money roughly $6 billion, but you cannot compare it because we had barely industry. We were like an agricultural nation in the 1930s, and so it was like a big effort from us to pay these requirements put by the Russians on us. So that's one of the ways towards this dark period of Cold War, which Finland was like on a slippery slope. So when we are talking about NATO today, there was a time in the 1990s was there was no clear need for that type of organization. Then in the end of 90s, NATO started to talk about the direction of Iran and all these things. And then after the September 11, 2001, this NATO was active in these Middle Eastern wars. And it's divided. And I think one of those wars were one reason NATO was not really popular in among the population. But there were some people within the army, the younger generation, who started to push the idea that we have to be, and they had some, Finland participated in this Afghanistan operation, and then some trainings also were given to Kurdish and some Iraqi soldiers, but I mean this, especially this Afghanistan war. So that is the time when some of the army people, they tied themselves closely with the Americans. And this can be seen that this old generation army people who had been somehow accepting that our history, that we had to be, I mean, we were allies of Nazi Germany, and there were some cruelties. War is always cruel, but then when they realized that these Americans had no respect for human life in Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere. I know some people who from the army who used to be pro-Western. They were disappointed after, especially the Iraqi war 2003. They started to see that this is not serving the national interests. These wars are like robberies, and if a million dies, it doesn't mean a thing. I mean, a bit similar like the First World War, when people started to talk about cannon fodder. But in this case, when they managed to do it, avoiding the American lives and killing only the locals and destroying their lives, they realized that to their own benefit. And it's like the first option, the war. They were disappointed. But at the same time, this collaboration of this NATO joint operation people from Afghanistan, they were behind the scenes strengthening their position, and it was one turning point, for example, that there was one of these American prison flights, or the Guantanamo, this one, they're torturing the people in 10 kilometers. That suddenly, from the army, they gave orders that they could land in Helsinki. It was just above, they somehow interfered in the Finnish, and all these things, they knew that what's going on, that they linked with these questionable things, torturing people and all, but all in this, and these people who were studying the history that Finland with Germany, they had a moral dilemma. How could we, if there is not real reason, why should we help some people to commit crimes against humanity, like the Americans did with these prisoners from the Afghanistan and Iraq? So that's it. But these people, they were gaining the upper hand, these NATO people from the army, as we have seen until now. it is not a secret that Finland has been in close cultural and military relations with Germany in many phases of our history, including prior to independence already. Some volunteers wanted to have German military training, and so they went there to be able to use that one to make Finland independent, and they were also partly involved in this independence or the civil war which broke out in Finland the time when Soviet Union was beginning, or the revolution took place in Russia. So this one, how about then the Second World War is known by many that Finland was allied with Germany, but as this Lavrov, the foreign minister, told that many of the European nations joined this crusade against Bolshevism. So I mean, if somebody admits that they had some dealings with Germany, the others, they easily point their fingers. But how about where is the resistance towards Germany in France, Belgium, Holland, Norway, Denmark, even Sweden? They were collaborating, that's clear, mostly. There was not, I mean, if it was not for the resistance of the Soviets, I think Europeans would have accepted the German rule. And in today's world, it makes sense that they have the resources. Germany is, for that big nation, it's too tight, and they didn't have all the resources, the energy and minerals, which they wanted to capture from Russia or Soviet Union. So we can always, now they try to cut this Russia into pieces and capture the resources in a different way, and all these European Union nations are included. There is some similarity between this time and the 1940s. But anyhow, there was some sympathy in Finnish army for the Germany, and practically all the Finnish cadets and all army people, they were studying the German military history, and because it's linked to our history. These American wars in Vietnam, we had no connection with them. Few people joined there, but I mean, it's totally different world, or the wars with the Indians and this liberation of, or occupation of North America. But so we're not that, we didn't play a big part in that process. There were some immigrants moved there in the beginning of 19th or 20th century, but anyway, so this inside the army, we had many high-level teachers in the military academy. They were translating books and memoirs of the Hitler's close circle, and many of them, they knew German. So there was this, it was till the end of 80s and even 1990s. We had these people who had in some ways more sympathy towards Germany than some. Maybe they liked the British, but, or even the United States, but it was not that it was acknowledged that it's only Russia who blamed us. They felt that they did the right thing by allying with the Germany during the war.